Hello and welcome to episode 15 of the Long Shot Podcast, of course brought to you by 342 Productions. I'm your host, Duncan Robinson, and I'm here with Davis Reed. Davis, how are we doing?
I am great. I am blessed and never stressed. How are you?
I'm doing well. If you're watching on YouTube, Davis is currently sporting a Dreamville Records sweatshirt, which I have a lot of appreciation for.
Yes.
Jermaine Cole is one of the best in my opinion, so that's fantastic.
Agreed. Hey, you have a very soothing voice. Have you heard that before?
I haven't, but I take that as the ultimate compliment, especially for somebody who hosts a podcast. So thank you for that.
You speak with a little bit of a slow intonation, but it's great. It's funny, we've been friends for like 10 years now, and I've seen a lot of comments about your voice, and now I'm very keen on listening. It's like it's changed the way that I listen to you now. I think maybe it's different on the podcast. I think maybe you turn it on a little bit, but it's great. And sometimes it makes me feel like I'm speaking with like a hyper energy.
I mean, I think there's an argument to be made that I lean into it a little bit in the professional setting of a podcast, but I think that I would be expected to in some capacity. So I guess we're just starting off with just complimenting me. So why don't you just continue to do that? And what do you got?
Yeah, this is what we do on this podcast, it's become clear. I'm going to continue complimenting you, actually, because another record has been broken. And my job, apparently, is just to remind you of every time that this happens. So this week you became the first in Miami Heat history to make 200 or more threes in back-to-back seasons.
That did happen this week. It's funny. I got asked about that after the game, and somebody asked me, Ira Winderman, who's our beat reporter, asked me about if I expected all of this before I had, really kind of worked my way into the lineup at the beginning of last year. And my answer was basically this, in that, and I've shared some stories about my career, mostly kind of the pitfalls and the adversity, particularly early on, maybe in my time in Michigan or high school when I just wasn't, frankly, a very good player. And what I said is that I've learned in my career not to expect anything. Now, I've always felt that I was capable and that this could be within my horizon, but I also am not naive to the fact that it requires opportunity and situation, which is so much of everything in life, timing, circumstances, all that sort of stuff. But I believe it specifically rings true really in the world of highly competitive basketball. Maybe that's high-level high school basketball, certainly high-level college basketball or college basketball in general. But I think as you continue to move up, opportunity and situation become even more and more paramount. And I think where you really, really see this is that there are so many players in the NBA that are capable. And I alluded to this on a previous episode, in that the guys at the back of the bench that, are getting crushed by your average fan, oh, he's a bum, I could beat him in one-on-one, this and that. Those guys are dogs. Those guys are killer. Like, those guys can hoop at a high level. But it's just, the reality is not everybody gets true, genuine opportunity. And I don't mean getting thrown into the game, at the end for 3 minutes. Some guys are able to parlay that into other opportunities, but the reality is those types of situations are really, really difficult to play well in. I mean more of, you have the support and backing of a coaching staff. You have the support and backing of teammates. You have guys that are wanting you to go out and be aggressive and play to your strengths. And those are all things that I've been afforded in Miami. And to just put it simply, I feel incredibly, incredibly grateful for it, because I know that, yes, I have to check all my boxes. I have to show up, be the consummate professional, handle my business, or at least try to be all of those things. Nobody's perfect in that regard. But I could still do all of those things and very reasonably not have the support, the backing, the encouragement that I have had in Miami. So for that, this was kind of a long-winded, long-form answer response to your question. that I'm just very grateful, and I am, not to get too sappy here, but I'm very appreciative of all the opportunities. And so to answer the question that the reporter asked me, no, I didn't necessarily expect this, because I've learned to not expect anything. But I did think that it was within the realm of possibility. And I guess, yeah, clearly it has. Not that I've like done anything crazy here. Let's also keep in mind that, it's the current NBA where threes are jacked pretty much every other possession. So, and that's my job to do it. So, yeah.
It's a great answer. I'm struggling on what my role here is, whether it's to continue to pump your tires and tell you that, look, you've afforded yourself that opportunity. Like, yeah, you're in the right situation. Sure. Yes, they instill that confidence in you. They give you the platform. They give you the shots, or not give you the shots, but they encourage you to take those shots. But you've earned that. So, I could pump your tires. I could also go the other direction and tell you that, Steph's done this 8 times.
Right.
Clay's done this 7 times. You've done it twice, which is great. It's your first 2 seasons, but, we're still climbing the mountaintop.
Well, I think the beautiful thing about Steph Curry right now is he is the ultimate perspective when it comes to shooting.
Right.
I think maybe for a second, or I think anybody would maybe think for a second that they're, maybe I'm having a pretty good shooting season. I'm doing this or that. And then you just see the statistics that this guy is putting up on a consistent basis. And it's otherworldly. It is, I think the last 5 games, he's averaging over 9 threes made per game.
Yeah.
I had a stretch last year where I think in 3 games I made 24 or 25 threes. And I legitimately felt like everything I threw up was going in. I felt like I was throwing the ball into the Atlantic Ocean. Like I would never miss. And this guy's done it 10x. I mean, he's done 9 a game for 5 games straight. It's just one time in my career I've hit 10 threes. I think 4 of the last 5 games he's done it. It's just like, it's sickening. It's an absolute joke. I think you look at his numbers and he's, I believe at this point, surpassed his unanimous MVP season. Obviously that year they were the best team in the NBA as well. And this year they're battling to get a play-in spot, but I don't care. It's incredible what he's done. He needs to be in this MVP conversation, because when you watch him play basketball, he is one of the few players in the NBA, when you watch him play, where it's very clear nobody else in the NBA can do what he's doing.
Yeah, it's insane. I think he's now the leading scorer in the NBA. Do you look at him as a guy that you can take things from, or is he just... Because your games aren't that similar. Like the way you get shots aren't that similar. Are there things you can take when you watch what he's doing, or are you sort of solely focused on the way you're getting shots?
Bits and pieces, right? I mean, there's like I alluded to, there's things that no player in the NBA I think can emulate what he does. Specifically, his ability to get shots off the dribble and at that range, and the way in which he does it within possessions. I mean, he'll go, and obviously he's the focal point of their offense, as he should be. But you look at how they structure things offensively, and it's pretty clear that every single time down the floor, the main objective is to get Steph Curry a look. Right. The thing that I am most able to take is I can't necessarily relate to the handle, what he's able to do with the ball in his hands. But when he gives the ball up, he has an incredible ability to find space and to find openings when, as a defender, he drives, comes off pick and roll, whatever, gets into the paint, and he gives the ball up. There's that moment of pause where, okay, my job's done. And that's when he really capitalizes. And credit to the Warriors and the rest of that group. They do an incredible job of, as soon as he gives it up, where's Steph? We got, he's now is the opportunity to get him an open one and an easy one, because he takes so many tough ones. It's important to get those relief threes, the ones where the defense is kind of lacking and you're able to get a rhythm shot. So that's one area where I really try to kind of steal. And I'll even say it, like they have really good, like Draymond's really good at, obviously, but even guys like a Juan Toscano Anderson is really good at off the ball, just screening, like finding Steph's man, creating space for Steph. And I try to be on my teammates here and there. Like I always say to KZ, Andre does it naturally, just because he's like next level basketball IQ. But like I'll say little stuff to some of my teammates, like, hey, when I drive and kick, like set that pin down, blah, blah, so on and so forth. And I sell it not to, because I'm like thirsty to get shots. Obviously I kind of am, but it's also a lot of times if I do that and come off, 2 will go with me and KZ will get a dunk or that sort of thing. So there's definitely things that you can take away because he's just an incredible basketball player and plays with such an IQ, but there's also things that he does that are just like one of one behavior, as I would say.
Yeah, I mean your gravity is pretty well documented, and that makes sense because you're getting shot. You're right. You're getting shots in similar ways when it comes to the off-ball movement. That's a perfect segue actually because I wanted to talk about Bam's game winner against Brooklyn.
Got to talk about that.
And the reason that's a good segue is when you go back and watch that play, Bam is alone on the left wing. There's a bunch of action going on the right side of the court. I think Goran comes to set you a screen with like 8 seconds left, and you immediately sprint. You refuse the screen from Goran. You sprint to the left corner on the same side where Bam is, which I think when you watch it, you think, why is Duncan going over there to crowd the court? But you have so much gravity that you put your defender in that position where he can't help off of you. And it seemed to spread the court a little bit for Bam. The reason I say all this is I'm curious, is that something that's predetermined? Like, is someone telling you to go over there? Is that a read you're making on your own? How are you guys handling that last like 10 seconds? Do you know what you're going to?
So this is an interesting conversation because I think it can go in a couple different directions. And I don't necessarily think that one is wrong and one is right. Now, I want to preface this by saying, in preseason, we would play and scrimmage a lot in preseason in our training camp. And we were scrimmaging and it came down to the wire. And I was on Bam's team. And it was tie game, very similar situation. Tie game in practice, in a Miami Heat practice scrimmage. Bam comes down the floor, makes it very clear he's taking the last shot. I was like, I don't know where I was maybe mentally, but like same kind of thing. It comes up on the left wing, like almost to a T. Somebody like sets like a kind of a fake pin down just to create some like whatever action for me on the backside. I fly off of the pin down and run towards the ball because I'm thinking like, I'm going to shoot the game winner. Like I'm missing the moment of like, clearly Bam is like trying, it was Precious who was on defense. Clearly Bam is like trying to, sun the rookie and let him know like this is his shit, right? Like our first big scrimmage in training camp. I like run to the ball. Bam like pissed off, like why is Duncan like waves me out? So I wave out to the exact same corner, the exact same setup that was this game winner the other day. And I'm sitting there like, and Andre was guarding me. And I'm sitting in the corner and I'm like, oh, I just messed this up for Bam. Like now the spacing's kind of messed up. He doesn't have as much room to operate. He ends up driving. Andre gets involved because I'm in the corner. Because Andre's like a high level IQ. No, he knows Bam's not going to pass it. He understands NBA. And once again, not that Bam should, but like understands NBA ego situation, all that type of stuff that comes together in a moment like that. And leaves as Bam starts to drive, doubles, and Bam gets bailed out by a foul, and we ended up winning, so it was fine. So fast forward to the other day in the Nets game, and G came to set that pin down, and I just cut out, and I should have cut back out. Sorry, there's an argument to be made. I should have cut back out to the side that I started on, giving Bam that whole wing to just operate, right? Now, with that being said, there's an argument that if you have 4 in that side, then you can send 1 and have 3 guard 4 on the backside and put 2 on the ball. Make Bam pass, especially if he's going to dribble it down to 3 or 4 seconds like he did. Eventually, we'll run out of time and get a bad shot. The defense can scramble and at least get a good contest on something that we didn't expect. Whereas instead, if you just let Bam go one-on-one, he can get to something kind of in his wheelhouse. So I end up the other day cutting through, and there I am again, finding myself in that exact same corner. And as he's going into his bag, I'm just thinking to myself, oh dear, I think I might have just fucked this up again. And I'm like, I just really hope Bam makes this. And luckily, not that Kyrie isn't a smart basketball player, because he is. He didn't help at all, really. And Bam still had space to operate. But our coaching staff, one of the coach in particular, was giving me a hard time and was like, dude, you did it again. He's like, we talked about this in practice. Like, let the man just have his space and go. So if you see me in that possession, I'm like pushed all the way to the absolute corner. My feet are like basically out of bounds because I'm trying to give Bam as much space as possible. Obviously, he didn't need too much space because he was still able to get to his jumper and win the game. But it was a funny. Little did we know that preseason moment was going to be a foreshadowing of the real thing against the Nets on a Sunday afternoon game.
Well, you didn't run for the handoff, and I'll be honest. I thought it made sense. I saw you run into the corner. I was like, oh, okay. Because now if Kyrie helps at all, that's a corner three for you, which we'll take all day. But that's hilarious. Do you feel yourself running to that corner and in real time being like, oh no, what am I doing?
It was once I got there, because I was just like cutting through, like, naturally you just try to find space. And once I found space, I was like, I did it again. But yeah, I will say, like, you could argue it either way, right? You could argue it that it's better to have the full side. Not, somebody like myself, knowing that they're not going to help on, it's not the worst thing in the world. So it depends which way you want to cut it, basically. But it ended up working out. So obviously I made the right decision, right?
Right. I was going to say, you could have just skipped this entire conversation and just been like, yeah, this is exactly what we talked about. It worked perfectly. Right. I loved the celebration. The benefit of you being in that corner is you're the first to Bam. You get to jump on. Yeah. It led to some good pictures. Also, great timing on our part that we decided to interview him a couple days before. It's just, I think it maybe was destiny.
Let's please not let that get lost in all of this. And that the same week that Bam Adebayo was on the Long Shot podcast was the same week he hit his first game winner as an NBA player. So I don't think that's a coincidence. I'll just leave it at that.
To all of our future guests, just know there might be some weird juju in the air, positive juju that is, with the Long Shot pod.
I love it. All right, what do we got? We got some Reddit question here.
Yes, we do. So this is actually an old mailbag question. I think it's sometimes fun to dip back into the mailbag. So this is from Chazinger. I apologize if I'm not pronouncing that correctly, but on Reddit, when you posted your Reddit AMA, this was a question we did not get to. They asked, what is your pregame or postgame ritual?
That's a good one. I get asked about that a decent amount. So my pregame ritual is basically I always take a pregame nap. I've actually this year I've started to shout out to Wayne Ellington for this. Actually, he reached out to me, and we kind of always go back and forth about shooting stuff and just little stuff here and there, ways to get shots or routines or whatever. And he had recommended meditation. And it's something that I kind of done before, some visualization stuff, but it was kind of loosely, like I would just kind of go through it. And now, since talking to him, I actually have an app that I have, and it's a Waking Up app with Sam Harris. It's just like a daily mindfulness thing, and it's not really particularly like pertaining to basketball, but I do it before my nap. Just kind of visualize some stuff, go through some stuff, try to just be present. Take my nap, wake up, pregame meal always. Then I head to the arena, and my shooting routine is pretty much always the same. I've kept it the same basically throughout my entire professional career. I go through a little stretching activation before it, do my shooting, and then after my shooting, I'll do a little bit of I'll just like write down some stuff, whatever you want to call it, journaling, setting some intentions, like I said, whatever you want to call it. And then I'll do some like final prep, go through some film stuff, watch some of their stuff, just kind of get reacclimated. Obviously we kind of already covered it as a team by this point, but just some individual personnel stuff or action stuff or what they're doing in a specific situation. And then it's pretty much game time from there. And then post game, just get a good meal, drink a lot of water, and get a good night's sleep. I'm high on a quality night's rest. I think that goes a long way. So that's pretty much what the game day looks like. Not super exciting, but I think the key there is, I don't think there's like one right answer to how to do it. I think the key is to just maintain consistency. I think that in terms of performance, if you keep everything the same leading up to it, then you're like limiting variables, right? So then you can expect consistency in your performance if you maintain consistency in your routine and your habits. So that's the hill I am willing to die on, is that consistency and just maintaining a routine is incredibly important.
Yeah, that makes sense. A couple follow-up questions. Do you always have the same pregame meal, or does that change?
So it changes here and there. I go through like stretches, right? Where like I'm a little superstitious, whatever you want to call it. So, if I eat something and I play well, man, I'll probably run that back, and I'll run it dry until I, have a game where maybe I don't play well, then I'll try to mix it up. But it's usually some combination of either like salmon or chicken with like a rice or a grain and then a vegetable. Pretty simple stuff. Nothing groundbreaking over here.
And then pre-game shots, what's the gap between you getting those shots up and then game time? Because if you're going back in, watching film, doing like, is it a complete cool down, or is it a short?
Oh yeah. No, okay. Complete cool down. I'm 2 hours. I do my routine 2 hours before tip. So we've been playing a lot of 8 p.m. games here in Miami. So 6 p.m. I'm on the court every single time. Go through my shots, usually about 15 to 17 minutes at the most. And it's just kind of game shots, trying to move game speed, just really get your legs kind of locked in and ready to go. And then, after that, I'm like completely cooling down, taking some time.
Do you have a set amount of makes, or is it an amount of shots?
No, it's makes. I'd have to count them up, and I'm not going to do that right now. But it's basically I make the exact same amount of shots every time.
Love it. Okay, yeah. Beautiful. I think that's it for my follow-up questions for now.
Yeah, no, it was good stuff. Great question from Chazinger. I appreciate your level of interest in my pregame routine. But all right, so now we got our long shot feature. This one's incredible to me. We have Asia O'Neal. She's a redshirt sophomore at Texas, and she's currently on the women's volleyball team. She had her second open heart surgery last year and is now back on the court helping her team reach the Final Four, which I believe, Davis, kicks off this week, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. So I live in a very big volleyball household. Yep. All the women on my mom's side of the family played volleyball. My sister played volleyball. So Tess
Reed, Loyola Marymount legend.
Legend, All-American setter, legend. She actually, we've talked volleyball on this podcast before, and she was a little upset that I didn't give her a shout out. So Tess, here is your shout out.
I'd also like to say you've all seen Davis's high school mixtape. I can confidently say that he is the least athletic person in his family.
That is a fact.
It is a dynamic group over there in the Reed household. So shout out to all the Reeds, particularly Clayton, just because he's, I don't know how old he is. That's Davis's dad. And if you're looking for some high level pickup in the Kansas City area, he's running it.
100%.
But this is now a tangent, but shout out to the Reeds.
Yeah. Well, the reason I even bring any of this up is my house has been dialed in. My family's been dialed in to the women's volleyball tournament. We filled out brackets, it's like we're doing the whole thing. We got bets on the table. So I know that, we are now down to the Final Four. Texas is in the Final Four, so shout out to Asia. And yeah, just an amazing story. She had her first open heart surgery at 12, I believe. Had her second last year, and now she's out. I almost said hooping, but she's not hooping. She's out there playing with the women, getting to the Final Four. Love it. I don't know the terminology for volleyball. Hooping's not it.
Balling, I think would work. She's balling. She's volleyballing.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So yeah, once again, shout out to Asia. And now I'm pulling for Texas. Didn't think that would happen, but here I am.
Yes.
All right. That pretty much wraps up the front of show. We want to get you guys to a really interesting conversation with Doris. She just has a wealth of basketball knowledge, has seen so many things in the basketball world. And as you guys will learn, she can do more than just talk about it. She can play a little bit as well. So I really think you guys are going to enjoy this one.
Yeah, this one was awesome. We had a whole list of questions to go through her journey and her story, and we get to some of that, but we ended up just talking hoops with her because, like you said, she has a wealth of knowledge, and it was a blast.
Yeah, I think the thing that stuck out the most to me is just how prepared she is to just talk about anything basketball related.
Yeah.
And she can just take it in a variety of different directions. So definitely an interesting conversation. And like I said, hope you guys enjoy this.